Thank you very much, Alejandro. Thanks for inviting me again to this conference, since I was 5 years ago in the conference of Barcelona explaining the recovery of tapping in Spain. And in this case, I will refer to Sust-Forest Plus project. That is a European Interreg project to consolidate and develop the resin activity in southwestern Europe. And this is the project concept, is to develop networks in Europe for multifunctionality, as we have seen in Portugal, and for forest conservation, to create employment in this territory through resin extraction. Sust-Forest Plus is an initiative by some of the major players in the value chain of natural resin in southwestern Europe to boost and consolidate the economic activity in the sector. So it is an innovation European project to work at the European level, to sensitize the European Commission and national and regional governments, because regional governments have the main competences in forest activity in Europe, on the relevance of natural resin production in Europe. For 3 reasons: to provide raw materials to the chemical industry, as we have seen, also to manage natural forests, also plantations, but mostly natural forests in a context of climate change and increasing risks. We have seen the problem of forest fires in Portugal, and very important for rural development, to provide quality jobs in rural areas. We lost thousands of jobs in the 60s and 70s, and now we have the opportunity to create these jobs back. So this is a capitalization project working on another one, Sust-Forest, that worked in the years 2011 to 2013, and we have the photograph of the final symposium that was held in Coca with Alejandro, that was not the president of the Pine Chemicals, but he was already working and collaborating with us. And in Europe, there are several resin projects going on. So there's something moving in Europe for the recovery. And these are linked to Horizon 2020. This is the research and innovation program for Europe. And for instance, we have Incredible. Incredible has the idea to create a European networks for innovation on non-wood forest products. It works with cork, with forest fruits, with aromatic plants, and also with resin. So we have Incredible resin. We have the idea to create and maintain this network. And it is, of course, we think, an opportunity to collaborate with the Pine Chemical Association, because we share interests in this region. In Spain, and financed by the National Rural Development Program, we have several operational groups. An operational group is an idea of the European Commission to solve a problem with 2 or more different stakeholders. And it is financed by the EU Common Agricultural Policy, and we already have 4. I'm mentioning 3: Resimec, Bioresin, Resinex, and there is another one in Galicia. So 10 years ago, nobody was working with resin in Spain, and now there are several projects in different regions going on because the interest is growing, and that's a positive idea. So we're really thankful to Interreg Europe. That's the program to develop the links between regions in Europe, and we are working at the SUDOE program that is based in Santander, working with southern France, Portugal, and Spain. The total budget of the project is about 1.5 million euros, like $1.68 million, and the Commission, the European Commission, is financing almost 2/3 of that. So we have more than like 1.5 million euros for the next 3 years. Okay, 36 months to work on what I'm going to show. The partners cover all the value chain of the resin production. First of all, we have the forest owners. Of course, we need the resin workers. We have the industry working and forest administrations, and linking everybody, the research and innovation centers in the 3 countries of the SUDOE program. We have France, Spain, and Portugal. And we have le Centre National de Propriété Forestière d'Aquitaine. This is the association that gets together all the private owners, forest owners in Aquitaine. They are the owners of 1 million hectares of pinus forests, and we have the European Forest Institute. In Spain, we have the university, the National Agricultural Research Institution, CESEFOR, that is an innovation foundation. In Portugal, we have also the National Agricultural Research Center and 2 different municipalities, Penela and Proença Nova, that are working very actively with us. And as you can see, the association partners is really big. There are a lot of entities. I could say that the main actors in the resin sector in Southwestern Europe are working with us. These are the names for you to have all the associated partners that we have. But to me, what it is important is that we need a new momentum in research in the resin production. And I think that we have really got into it. And we have the national research institutes from Portugal, from Spain, and also from France, and different regional centers in different regions in Spain. For us, it's very important the cooperation also with the European Forest Institute, with its regional office at Bordeaux. And you can check the webpage because they are one of the main actors developing forest policy in Europe. And this is the territorial scope of the regions that are part of the project. We have North Portugal, Central Portugal, Castilla y León is the region that I work for, the government of this region, and Nouvelle-Aquitaine, that is the new big region bringing together Aquitaine and 2 or 3 other French regions. The objectives of the project are 3. The first one is to meet the demand for natural resins of the Southwest European industry. And Europe is one of the main consumers of resin, and we believe that natural resin, also coming from tall oil, is probably has a big stake of the future demand. More important for rural development is to generate stable and quality employment in rural areas. And in the last 10 years in Spain, we have created 1,000 jobs without any type of state aid. So it's economical activity going into the rural areas, and that's very important for Europe because we went through the program of rural depopulation and we want to get it back. And the third question is valuing commercial and technologically natural resin produced in our forest. As mentioned the Portuguese, we probably need some forms with the market and with the industry to put value into the natural resin coming from natural forest sustainably. There are 3 working packages in the project. The first one is to develop a territorial strategy because we represent governments, municipalities, and regions, and we think that this activity is really relevant for the land, for the people, for the municipalities. And so we will work in this territorial strategy that is going to be part of the intelligent strategy for Europe in the next years. We have a plan to improve labor quality and the sustainability of the resin workers. And the third one refers to the raw material. Resin is a sustainable raw material, and we want to promote its usage. So we want, as main results, first one would be, we want to create the European Resin Network and work with ARPA and work with the Pine Chemical Association to develop this territorial strategy, to establish new permanent research plots. The states develop a huge work in resin production during the 20s, 30s, and 40s, and we think that we should recover this. Provide new business models for resin production. In France, we need to, not the classical tapping is probably going to take to get into the market, but there are new business models that could be developed, and that's what we have to work. So it's not only innovation in mechanization, it's the business model that has to change. Perhaps we cannot have in France 1,000 workers working 8 hours a day, but through the borehole techniques and with different techniques, increasing productivity, tapping can come back to France also. We will work in an electric resin trolley prototype, but the idea is integrate the resin extraction in other forest tasks, as the previous speaker proposed. We need to develop a traceability system for resin production, for natural resin. And that is something in which we need you, because it is the industry, the only one that can take care of it. And we, the administrations, can help you, but really we need this. And finally, saying the consumers, this is natural. This product is chemical, but it's coming from your forest. This is helping people, this is helping the land. And that, as we saw yesterday, probably is an important and really commercial speech for the industry. We'll see, but we're convinced of that. And of course, we'll work on the carbon balance for natural resin as it was developed for tall oil some years ago. So we will have 3 international meetings in the next 3 years. The next one will be in Portugal. In 2020, we'll meet in Spain. And finally, we would really like you to meet with us at Bordeaux in the year 2021. So the added value that we expect this project to suppose will be to develop the sustainability concept for European natural resin. What is very important, to place natural resin in European policies. And resin is almost outside, as I will show you afterwards, at the European policies. And the European policies are really pushing the international policies, as was mentioned also yesterday. Profit from innovation partnerships, to learn from good practices, and to become active partner in building a circular bioeconomy. And resin production, I can tell you, it is in the heart of circular bioeconomy because it develops the land and it provides natural raw materials for the industry. So the idea is work on sustainability. We have a wonderful raw material that is natural resin that can really integrate with other sources of resins, as we have seen, but this one is special because it works for the land and it works for the people. So we really believe in this speech of sustainable development, and chemistry can. So CEFIC is your association of the European industry. I'm talking now to the European part of the industry, but I think that it's relevant. We saw yesterday what the American industry said. We can create a low carbon economy. You are committed to conserve the resources. You want to collect a circular economy and care for people and planet. And resin can really do it. Among the top 10 recommendations for the future for the European chemical industry was to provide bio-based raw materials. And natural resin and tall oil are among those. So I want to signal you to the European policy for raw materials because it's an important one. And this policy takes care that the European economic sector gets all the raw materials that are needed. It's minerals, it's rare earth, but also wood and pulp. And natural resin is not there. We have to change it because resin is a raw material and it should get into this policy that is being developed. Also, the forest strategy, as we have seen, it is very important for the protection of forests. And this year, for the first time, Sweden faced forest fires. So the problem is for all, the risks are coming for all the European forests. And of course, also in America, also in Asia, risks are increasing for everybody. We need new solutions. And of course, the EU bioeconomy strategy that is being revised by the European Commission and that next month will be presented by the Commissioner in Brussels, probably the 10th or the 20th of October. So there are coming news and you and we all should get into this policy because it's really the part leading your sector. We have an industry needing resin, and we have 4 million hectares of pine forests in Europe. Probably someone should analyze the amount of the forest that could provide resin all around the world, because the future is to use sustainably the forest. China is doing an amazing effort in forest restoration. Europe has done it in the past, but we need to use sustainably forest. And that what has happened last year in Portugal cannot happen again in the rest of Europe. The way is to use this forest sustainably for the production of wood, for the production of resin, of hunting, for grazing, for multiple use, and fixing 20 million tons of CO2. Really, in the production of resins, we are contributing to this low carbon economy. Look back, look at the forest, and contribute to change mitigation. We've mentioned the risk of fires, but it's also the risk of diseases. And with globalization, with global trade, diseases are moving from China to Europe, from Europe to America, and now we have this serious risk of pine nematode facing the forest of Portugal, now also in our region and in Galicia, and it's probably the major risk for pine forest all across Europe. And we have seen the problem in Japan, in Korea, and so we really have to take care, and resin workers can take care of it. We're facing more and more every year big, huge fires in Europe, but they are burning forests like in Canada or in the States. But what happens in Europe is that we have the cities very close to the forest. So the risk is not only a risk for the forest, it's real risk for the people. So we really need people working in the forest for economic activities, and that's something that resin activity can do. These people working during winter and spring in the time will prevent forest fires. And these people can do at the same time the silvicultural treatments and the resin production. So the resin sector is a sector that can provide resin for the industry, jobs for the people in rural areas, and forest management and forest conservation. This is important for Southern Europe, but it will probably be very relevant for Scandinavia and for Central Europe. So thanks for your attention, and let's work all together for the future of natural resins.